It's U of L Today on 93.9 The Ville. Here's your host, Mark Hebert.
And welcome to U of L Today with Mark Hebert on 93.9 The Ville. So glad you're joining us today for the show that's about all things University of Louisville, all the good stuff going on at the University of Louisville. And we got a couple of guests today that I hope you'll enjoy. The first one, or the second one actually, artificial intelligence. Robots, drones, self-driving cars. There's a big worry in the computer engineering community that AI could and will be misused by bad actors intent on causing high-tech crimes and disasters. We'll talk to a U of L professor who's one of the architects of a paper that looks at the dangers of artificial intelligence. But first, he's the new dean of U of L's Brandeis College of Law. His name is Colin Crawford. He came to Louisville from New Orleans and Tulane University, and he's got some family roots in Kentucky, and so he just showed up on campus in January. So welcome, Colin, to the University of Louisville.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Glad you're here. So you came from Tulane, right?
That's correct.
In New Orleans?
That's right.
Did I say that correctly?
There are many ways to say it. A lot of people
say
I say New Orleans, copying some of my colleagues who are from there. New Orleans.
Not the Nawlins,
Right,
Nolans?
right.
Okay.
That's largely done for tourists.
All right. Well, so now we get to put you on the spot and get you to pronounce Louisville.
I say, hey, I come by this honestly. My dad was from Kentucky, Louisville.
Okay, very, very nicely done, sir.
And I didn't even have to practice. I grew up saying it that way.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your roots here in Kentucky. Talk about your father.
So my dad was born in a little town called Corydon, not Corydon, Indiana, but Corydon, Kentucky, which is in western Kentucky near Henderson. And he comes from a family that raised harness racing horses.
So did he race at the Louisville Downs?
Oh, harness racing, is that what?
Yeah, Louisville Downs had harness
they were in
racing.
western Kentucky. So his father was the youngest of 10, died actually after a horse riding accident when my dad was under a year old. And his mother then, who was a nurse, followed a brother who had respiratory illnesses to Colorado. So that's how I ended up coming from Colorado. But my dad would come back to Corydon every summer and be cared for by all of his aunts, and so that kept the family connection going. And that was my prior experience in Kentucky, was mostly coming into Evansville and driving over there. So.
Okay. Did you have any want or desire to be a harness racing trainer?
No, that was
that
never.
That didn't wind up in there.
No.
And didn't you have some lawyers in your background as well? Did you have some lawyers in your
Well,
family?
my dad became a lawyer,
right.
And largely because, Happy Chandler was also from the two-time governor and baseball commissioner, as you know, was also from Corydon, and he kind of stepped in and took a paternal role in my dad's life subsequently because my dad only had aunts. His father was the only boy in that big family. And so Happy, of course, had been a lawyer and was kind of the model for my dad, who had no prospects of going to college when he was 17 years old, and real old style. Can you imagine calling the governor and saying, can you send me to the University of Kentucky? And according to my dad, Happy said, no, the chancellor and I just had a fight. He's not going to do me any favors, but I can send you to Western Kentucky, which was in a teacher's college, 2 years teacher's college. And that's where my dad started college, and he leveraged that into then a college degree from the University of Colorado and ended up graduating, if you can imagine this, from Yale Law School. So from really no prospects to quite considerable success. And so I have him as a lawyer in my family,
Gotcha.
yes.
That's where the background is.
Right.
So you decided to become a lawyer.
Right.
Where'd you do your undergrad and your graduate?
I went to Columbia University in New York City as an undergrad. I then was going to be a historian. I spent 4 years in Cambridge, England, studying history, studying for a PhD. Then the go-go 80s, I applied to go to law school and got into Harvard Law School, and that's where I graduated.
Well, perhaps you need to talk to my son because he's a history major and hadn't quite figured out what he wants to do, and he's considering law school.
Okay.
So there you go.
Send him my way.
All right, we're talking to Colin Crawford, who's the new dean of the law school at the University of Louisville. So how'd you get to Louisville? How'd you get to the University of Louisville
Well, Mark,
from Tulane and then before that?
Yeah, it was kind of curious. So I'm now on my 5th law school. I've never been kicked out. I was always recruited to go to the next place in my career. I wasn't looking to be a dean. I had run a big interdisciplinary development study center at Tulane, bringing together many units. So I had administrative experience, but suddenly in late 2015, I got 5 calls within a month from 5 different headhunting firms to apply for a dean, something I hadn't been looking for. I advanced in 2 of them. Louisville had a special appeal to me because of my family connection, having been to Kentucky because of my dad. And I came here. I really liked the folks I met, and here I am.
And you have a background in environmental and land use law.
Right.
How was that? How did that come about? Was that just something you really enjoyed doing, or was that
that
you kind of landed in?
Yeah, like so many things in life. I mean, I was always interested in environmental issues. I grew up in Colorado. Like Kentucky, the outdoors is very easily accessible, and so spent a lot of time outdoors. So that mattered to me. But like so many things, after I graduated, I never took an environmental law course, for example, or a land use course in law school. I started an environmental law course, and I thought the professor was too boring, that I just wouldn't make it through to the end of the course, so I dropped it. But after law school, I took a job with a big firm in New York, and I happened to, I always started work very early, 7 o'clock, and I happened to be in the elevator one day with the head of the environmental practice group, and I think because she saw me in the building and she had an assignment, she called me 5 minutes later, and then I became a part of that group. So, like so many things, one thing led to another.
Just happenstance more than anything else.
Very much like my ending up here now, right? It's never part of the plan, but then you're happy with the way things turn out.
There you go. All right. Well, a couple more things about your background. Fulbright scholar. You were a Fulbright scholar
right.
back when you were in college or a graduate.
No, it was when I was teaching at Georgia State in Atlanta.
Okay.
Right.
So you were a faculty Fulbright.
Right, I was faculty Fulbright.
Gotcha.
Right, I spent a sabbatical semester there.
Well, as you know, the University of Louisville is well known for its student Fulbrights.
I do know that.
As well as its faculty Fulbrights, where we have several of them. So are you wanting to get involved in that? Are you wanting to be a mentor, perhaps?
I'm happy to. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. We have faculty who are applying for Fulbrights and students as well. So it's a very important program, and of course, there will be times when I wish I had the time to do one again, but I don't think that's part of being a dean.
No, I don't think so either. And you also speak how many different languages?
I speak 3 well, including English, and I speak a 4th reasonably well.
And what's the 4th?
The 4th is French.
And the 2 others?
The 2 others, I speak good Portuguese and pretty good Spanish as well. Lecture and write in both of those as well.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the UofL Law School. What'd you find? You show up at UofL and you take the job. What'd you find?
Well, I mean, I took the job because I was so impressed by the fundamentals. I mean, it's a terrific faculty. It's a very hardworking faculty. And as I said, I have perspective now on 5 different faculties. And one of the calling cards of this faculty is that it's available to students. And that is really true in a way that I haven't seen at other schools, even other schools that say that's part of the DNA of the place. So it's really a place committed and open to students. I mean, indeed, I have, applicants come and walk by my office and come in for a chat. I can't imagine that at any of the other places I've been. So I think that there's an openness to working with students. I'm also very impressed by the legal community here. There's, a very strong, tight-knit legal community, and I find that there's pretty deep support for the school as well. So, the bones of the place are very strong, and that's what appealed to me.
When you say the faculty is open to students, open door policy, is that what you're talking about here? They're available after class to
Absolutely. Come in and really, give 150%. They don't they go over and beyond what is required, making opportunities. We're very, very thinly staffed, and faculty do things that, again, I haven't always seen, accompanying students to moot court competitions and trial competitions, helping put together events that really change the life and career direction of students and also serve the community, not just for the students.
Right, and there's a big community service component in the law school. There has been, at least in the past. what have you seen as you
Well,
shine
that's
on?
absolutely true. You know, we're one of the earliest, if not the earliest in the country, as a school that actually created a public service requirement. And so that is very much a part of what we do. This is now required by the American Bar Association, which accredits us. You now have to have what they're calling experiential learning, which is a fancy way of saying kind of apprenticeship, what they used to call apprenticeship. But, you know, so we have students going out into the community doing those things. And we have other programs, too, like the Human Rights Assistance Program. We have a new elder law and estate planning program and other things that give students the opportunity to actually apply their skills out in the community. So it's good for the students and I think good for the folks we're serving as well.
I'll say, so you found all this good stuff going on at the U of L Law School. What have you found that you think needs changing?
Well, I would like to have more resources. We have some,
Don't we
wouldn't
all?
everybody? You know, we have some infrastructure challenges that we need to address. Again, even things that the ABA noted. We have a lovely building, but parts of it are
It's old.
aging and need to be updated for 20th century law practice. So there is certainly that. I'd like to be able to free up some faculty time so they could devote themselves to research. We have a very good enrollment right now, and our applications are slightly up, keeping with national trends, so that's good news. But more than anything else, like everyone, you know, I'd like more resources for scholarships. It's very competitive right now. UK is just about to open up a new law building, having, as I understand it, not had a very nice building for a while. So that's really going to, you know, up the competition for us. So, you know, we just need to pay attention.
Gotcha. Colin Crawford is our guest. He's the new dean of the U of L Law School, started in January at U of L, came from Tulane University, and I assume you found a place to live in Louisville, right?
I did. I'm living very near to where we're sitting right now. I live in Old Louisville.
Okay, well, very good. All right, you mentioned that the applications were up for U of L Law School, and the admissions are up as well. That was not the case in the past, 10 years or so. Law school
about 8 or
admissions dropped
right.
quite substantially. So do you feel that that's now turning around? And if so, is that it's good for the law school, but is it good for the practice of law? Or do we have too many lawyers, in other words?
Do we have too many lawyers? I mean, the market tells us how many lawyers we need, right? And it is true, especially in 2010, 2011, 12. Those were very bad years nationally, and we've seen law schools contract. And several law schools have closed, right? We just got news that another one is closing a couple of weeks ago. That's regrettable, obviously, for the people involved, but it's probably inevitable because there were too many law schools that had been accredited, and so we're seeing some shrinkage. The market for lawyers has shrunk some, but now, you know, people retire, people die, people get sick, and so now there's a demand. I mean, the numbers of applicants aren't back up to the levels of 2008. We're seeing a steady rise. So I really think the market has adjusted. One of the other things we're seeing, Mark, just to conclude this, is that there's an increasing demand for what they call JD Advantage jobs. That is where students take the bar, but they're not necessarily practicing law.
That is some related field or something?
Yeah,
or
so compliance
business?
jobs, for example, business jobs. And so there's real recognition. I hear this out in the community all the time. I talked to a graduate of ours who's a president of a local bank the other day. He says his legal training was the best thing he ever did, better than any business training he got. So I think there's a recognition that a law degree serves you well in many ways, and we're seeing the market change in that way as well.
Talking with Colin Crawford, the dean of the Brandeis School of Law at the University of Louisville. Some of the other things that we hear are the hot fields in law are commercial law, trademark, copyright law, those kinds of things. Are those still the hot fields to go in where there are plenty of jobs available, either in corporate world or out on your own?
Absolutely, although it depends to some extent on your location. I mean, one of the things I'm trying to do is really begin to highlight over the next couple of years our strength in the commercial and business law area, which we have, but I don't think we've, if you like, bragged enough about it to the market so that applicants understand that. And it makes sense in this market. Louisville's a commercial town, and so we really have that to sell. And so we're trying to figure out how we can both share that news with the world, but also develop and deepen opportunities there, because that's really where there are going to be opportunities for students going ahead.
And as dean, you're working with basically really three different exterior groups. You're talking to alumni, you're talking to students, and you're talking to potential donors. What are you telling all those three groups? We'll kind of wrap this thing up.
Well, I tell them the same thing that I started with you saying. The fundamentals here are so strong. We have a great faculty. We have a solid alumni base. I'm trying to reach out to portions of that alumni base that haven't been touched for a long time, right? So I think we have some work to do there. And also trying to spend time with students. One of the things I don't have now, I'm not teaching right now, so I don't have that same contact with students. So I'm trying to create new ways to sit down with students. So, I've started a new thing where students can come and have breakfast with me twice a week. And, on my dime, I take them out and just get to know them a little bit. So, and that's part of building alumni connections in the longer term as well.
Right, because they'll become alumni one day, right?
Exactly. And not too long, not too far away.
All right. Do you like basketball? I hope you like basketball.
I do. Is there a no answer in Louisville to that question? I'd be drummed out of town if I said no.
You can say you like soccer.
Yes,
you're a bigger football fan or whatever. So.
I like basketball.
Well, that's good.
It's fast and there's a lot of talent that's exciting to watch here.
All right. Well, if you're living in Louisville, Kentucky, you got to be a basketball fan, like you said. All right. Colin Crawford, appreciate you being on the show. Good to have you. Good to have you at the University of Louisville.
Mark, thank you very much for your time.
Roman Yampolskiy is a professor in computer engineering and computer science at UofL. He is one of the authors of a paper on the malicious use of artificial intelligence. And he's here to talk about that paper and a little bit about what artificial intelligence is and what his fears are. Roman, good to see you again, as always.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right. What is artificial intelligence? Explain to Joe Schmo out there what artificial intelligence is.
Hi, Joe. So it's our
Jolene.
Jolene. It's our best attempt to teach computers to do our work for us. So whatever is physical labor, cognitive labor, can computers do it? Write papers, clean up bathrooms, drive cars, whatever it is.
Robots?
Robots, but also a lot of it is intellectual labor. Somebody doing your taxes doesn't need a body.
Okay. So that's artificial intelligence. We've talked about it, on this program before with you. And you have some concerns about the future of artificial intelligence.
Right.
So what are those?
So if you can automate any job, you can automate bad guys, right? You can automate hackers, criminals, virus writers, social engineering attacks. All of it can be done on scale and much cheaper. So if right now you're getting maybe one spear phishing email once in a while, you'll get hundreds of them. And millions of people will fall for it.
But that's, but it still takes a human action to respond to that to make it malicious, right? You have to open up the email. You have to do something. A human has to do something.
This is the victim, right?
Right.
So I'm saying the attack surface can be automated. We can, instead of, I have to go through your Facebook, figure out names of your kids, where you work, construct an email, just try to get you to respond and give me your password. Mm-hmm. What if I can do it on scale for every Facebook user? 2 billion accounts, 20% response rate. That's a significant impact.
That is a significant impact. Well, let's go back and just a tad here. You wrote a paper with some other researchers from a number of other universities, I think, in February, talking about, the title is The Malicious Use of Artificial Intelligence, Forecasting, Prevention, and Mitigation. So what were the highlights of that paper?
So we look at what we can do mostly with existing technology. A couple of years ago, I published a paper on malevolent AI, which looks at future of AI. Then we get to human-level intelligence. So that's really scary because anything goes. This was just with existing technology, things like data mining, spoofing voice or video. We can make it sound like you calling your wife, saying, hey, what's the account number? I forgot. So we're looking at things we can do today and how can we maybe prevent them. Drone attacks, militarized AI. So it's much more kind of practical type of report.
Not the future, but what's going on right now.
Right now, next couple of years, existing concerns.
So you gave a couple of examples with the Facebook example and some other things. What are some other things that the technology that we have right now that you worry about could be used for malicious purposes? Or is being used for malicious purposes?
Absolutely, and we're starting to see it. Take drones, right? You can buy a cheap drone, $50, couple of $100. You can militarize it. You can put a bomb on it. You can use it to spy on people. You can get 100 of them and get them to all attack someone at the same time. Same with self-driving cars. We just saw a case where they had an accident. What if you have a fleet of self-driving cars you hack and it's not an accident and they
just randomly
trying to
run into people
get
down in the
pedestrians down? Yeah.
Do you think that's a realistic possibility?
That we can hack computers?
I know we can hack computers. Realistic possibility that it would be so malicious that a human would program or would hack computers that they do that, I guess.
Well,
is my
there is
question.
no shortage of crazy people, right? We see terrorists, we see those school shooters who can maybe be more creative. We can talk about religious cults, suicidal people, foreign governments. There is so many possible actors who would be interested in some sort of damage, either on local scale or even global scale.
Yeah. I'm talking with Roman Yampolskiy, who's a computer science professor at the University of Louisville, and he's done a couple of books and some other things on artificial intelligence. Right now, we're working on robots. We got a robot lab at the University of Louisville. You're teaching students. You do these hacker things where you teach the students how to stop a hack and to do a hack, right? So, is the University of Louisville teaching people how to maliciously use artificial intelligence?
In a way, anytime you teach someone any technology, it's dual-use technology. They can use it for good or bad. The good news is we are among probably top 5 in the world of actually looking at those problems and trying to find ways to address it. So there is Oxford, Cambridge, MIT, Berkeley, and then us. So that's pretty good.
And when you say we're among the top 5 at looking at these things, is that you mean that UofL is being proactive in teaching its students how to stop hacks and those kinds of things?
Well,
what do you mean by that?
The artificial intelligence community is very large. There is probably, let's say, 100,000 active machine learning researchers. A tiny, tiny fraction of them, less than 1%, actually is aware of these problems and working on them. And to be some of those few select research groups is actually quite promising. I think it's going to give us a lot of impact and bring resources and interest to UofL.
Are companies looking forward as much as you are at the potential problems of artificial intelligence, or are companies simply looking at this as, I can find a way to save money by having robots do all these jobs that humans are now doing?
It's starting to change. So one of the reports I have and keep updating is examples of how AIs fail. So anytime something happens, I add it to my database. And I published this report, and it has things like, okay, self-driving car kills someone, Microsoft chatbot becomes racist. Hundreds of examples, really. And before, it used to be that manufacturers just wanted to produce the product as cheaply as possible, not worry about any consequences. Maybe it's a Chinese manufacturer, no security, anything like that. Now I'm starting to get phone calls. Okay, we read your report. We're very interested. How can we learn from the patterns? Can we prevent our product from embarrassing the company, destroying value? So it's starting to change. It's still a slow process, but it's promising that there is now realization that you can just put, independent intelligence in your product and not worry about what's going to happen to it.
Should we be worried that the Russians and the Chinese are ahead of us on this?
Again, it's hard to know what happens behind the closed doors. Publicly, it doesn't seem like it's the case. It's mostly quantity, not quality work.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
They'll publish thousands of papers, but most of them are junk.
Okay. But your papers are not junk, right?
Exactly.
All right. And we're talking about artificial intelligence here and the potential malicious use of it. When you talk about the Russians, they already have hacked into our, I shouldn't say they hacked in, that's not true. Well, we don't know whether it's true. They influenced our elections by using bots and other things fake news, planting stories, those kinds of things. Is that a malicious use of artificial intelligence, or is that smart humans just manipulating the system and the technology that in the U.S.?
It was a hybrid model. So they use automated data collection methods, and then they tailor, let's say, ads specifically for your profile. They know you have this set of likes, that religion, that background, so we can give you a message which will perfectly change your mind. But this is exactly what I'm concerned about. Now you can automate the whole process. I don't need anything. I just need to set the system, make this guy vote for this candidate. And the rest, just release it, you'll get 100 million new votes.
Right. But again, it takes a human reaction to make that happen. I mean, if they're bombing me and my Facebook page with, fake news and, Hillary Clinton's the worst candidate ever and she.
Is that fake news?
Well, she may have been the worst candidate ever. That may be an objective candidate.
The whole point is you wouldn't know it's fake news, right? To you, it would look absolutely real, and they would pick something you are very likely to believe. That's the whole point. It's like mind hacking, right? Your brain is a computer.
I like to think I'm smarter than that, but maybe I'm not.
No.
You're telling me I'm not. Yeah, I'm not
None
smarter
of us
than...
are. Every
Okay.
study shows just the music playing in the background will change your mind. Certain visual inputs. We can hack your brain.
Now, that's the most frightening thing you've said here today.
All right.
What do you mean by that?
If you study psychology, if you study how human brain works, you can detect certain patterns, smells, visuals, noises, verbal patterns you can use to influence a person beyond what the data and facts should do. So there was a cute study recently. Wine stores selling German wine and, let's say, Spanish wine, right? Same type of wine, same prices. The type of music playing in a store shifts the sales numbers by like 70%.
Well, that's a little scary.
That's insane, right?
Yeah,
But
that's
that's just
nuts.
one thing, and it's for everyone. What if I customize it just to you? I know everything about you, your preferences, your likes, your complete history, maybe your DNA.
And we've seen that with Facebook now, that they're going through all this,
Exactly. And what we're seeing is the tip of the iceberg. They got public information from public accounts. How much do they collect when you just privately browsing on your own other websites?
All right, so that information that comes about, that's mined, for lack of a better term, by these agencies, individuals, others, how do they transfer that knowledge to artificial intelligence, a robot, a bot, something else there's got to be a transfer of the power and the intelligence to artificial intelligence. So how does that happen? I know it's probably technical, but how does it happen?
No, it's not that complicated. It's really statistics. So we call it machine intelligence, AI, but really you have statistical patterns. You have enough data, you can realize anyone who buys diapers will also buy beer. Okay, just place them next to each other in a store. That's the pattern. When I have so much data about you, I can see that other people just like you react this way to this ad, but this way to that ad. I can tailor it and change it live as you clicking on things. I can update until you going exactly where I need you to go. Mentally, I mean.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's kind of scary. So what would you tell folks about artificial intelligence? It's coming, it's happening, it's been happening for probably 10 years or so at least. Should we all be scared? Should we all be worried about 1984, kind of Orwellian thing, or what?
Yes, all of the above. You should know what the technology is, what it does, what it can do, and most interestingly, what it's going to do in the future. So this is what we have today. We're talking about existing problems. Think about 5 years, 10 years, 15 years of progress where we do get to human level or beyond. So at this point, the system is smarter than you. It's not just a script where it shows you something. It can actually have a conversation with you, debate with you, convince you of pretty much anything. It has more facts, better access to literature. It's more advanced in just negotiating skills. We have computers today beating top human poker players. Poker is all about bluffing and lying and negotiating. We already have that. Think about super intelligent systems doing that.
Yeah, and super intelligent systems that have the power to destroy things, right?
Well, absolutely. With great intelligence comes a lot of opportunities to do anything you want to shape the world the way you see it. So that's very important for us to align those systems with our preferences.
So what movie should we go watch that's going to foretell what's coming in the future? Any good movies you love to watch?
I usually don't watch TV, but once in a while people convince me I have to start watching things. So the whole Black Mirror thing is pretty interesting. The last good movie I saw on this topic was Ex Machina.
What?
Ex Machina?
I don't know that one. Missed that one.
They make a good-looking robot, and she tricks the guy into releasing her from like prison by being seductive and things.
And then she goes on and does
Yes.
bad stuff. Okay. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening. And go Cards!